Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to Korean Atlanta Mentorship. So, you ever notice that if you go to a website of a bank and they talk about HELOCs, they always talk about how to fund your dream home improvements. They always encourage you to do home improvements with HELOC. And all a home equity line of credit is, or a HELOC, is just a kind of think of it as a credit card based on your home equity as collateral, right? Like there's nothing in the HELOC document that says you only have to use it for home improvements because it's secured by your home equity. And if you don't know what a home equity is, all it is just the estimated sales price minus how much you owe on your mortgage, pretty much, and maybe some other debts tied to your home. But you ever notice that they're always talking about funding home improvements, right? Now, let's rationally think about why they would want us to do this and why they love it when you do this, right? So if we kind of think like a lender, what's the easiest best way for us to make money? You make big purchases like home renovations, and then you just make minimum payments on that. Big purchases, minimum payments, and hey, let's get you a savings account because you need 3 to 6 months of savings, right? That's going to make sure that you never pay off your debts too quickly, and you're going to collect interest, which is like how banks make profit, right? Interest is essentially rent on your money. All right. So, what we're going to do is now that we've gotten an idea why banks encourage people to take HELOCs to do home renovations, because again, big purchases and minimum payments equals a lot of profit. And the other thing too is we don't, if you're a lender, you don't lend to people who need money, right? You want to lend to people who have great incomes, but they're just terrible at managing their incomes. Okay, that's what you want. So let's get an idea of that. Yes, we are the lender. We want to encourage people to take out lines of credit to make these big purchases. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to review a real life case example on a Reddit post that I found. So let's take a look here on Reddit. And, there's a post on debt free. How do you get out of HELOC debt, right? So it seems like this person did what the banks exactly wanted, and that's why this person is struggling. So let's go ahead and read this. I took out a HELOC loan. So HELOC loan. So just error number one, this person doesn't even know if we got a line of credit or a HE loan, right? So it's like asking, hey, I got a credit card loan. Well, I guess that does exist, right? But it's like, for the most part, speak clearly. Did you get a credit card or did you get a loan? What credit HELOC loan sounds like to me. But I get what he's saying. Prior to the Fed interest rate hike in order to pay off debt and to increase our home's value with upgrades. Ah, you see this? They got you. Increase our home's value with upgrades, big purchases like home renovations. All right, our HELOC loan is now becoming unmanageable with these increases. Payment went from $300 a month to $700, right? We have excellent credit. The interest rate, so take a look here. Here's the thing. If you're using a HELOC and your payment matters, guess what? You're not doing velocity banking. I'm gonna briefly go over that after we read all this. We have an excellent credit. The interest rate on the house is only 3.25% balance 193K. So we chose not to do a cash out refi in order to preserve that rate. Okay, well, that makes sense. And the HELOC rate is almost at 9% adjustable rate, and we owe 87K, right? Most of this was probably from debt consolidation, okay, which is not a bad idea. But number two, to make upgrades to your homes, and that's the part where, if I were the lender, I definitely want them to do that, especially if my interest is secured on the home. Now, I'm not saying, hey, I want to foreclose because no bank wants to foreclose unless they really, really, really have to. But let's just go here. I feel stuck and stupid and can't find a way out without cashing out everything we have in order to pay it down since we don't have enough to pay it off. And I'm just like, raising my eyebrow, kind of like the Rock. It's like, okay, like you seem to have good credit, decent income. Uh, you don't need a cash out refinancing because you got a little implementation strategy of how to use your HELOC called velocity banking. And I know this guy's not using velocity, or guy or gal is not using velocity banking. Why is that? Because when you're using velocity banking with your HELOC, you don't care about the payment, right? Well, because, and we'll go over what the actual strategy is. So he's saying, okay, he or she, whoever, is anyone going through anything similar? Did you find a solution other than wiping out your savings? Now, here's another mistake. Why do you need savings? You see, I know what the banks want you to do. They want you to have the savings, right? Minimum payments, savings, and big purchases like home renovations. Okay. All right, wiping out your savings to get the balance down so the payment is not as high since it's based on the balance owed. Is there any way to refi out a HELOC? Because right now I can't find any alternatives. If we refi our current mortgage, it seems like we'll be stuck at the high interest rate at a fixed level considering this market. So let's just make a list of mistakes that from reading this question from Reddit, and I'll just make a big, we'll call it HELOC mistakes, right? So number one, oopsie. Number one, actually, let me do this. Okay. Let's go here. What is mistake number one when we read this? Not knowing, not knowing the difference between a line of credit and a loan, right? He's like, HELOC loan. I got a credit card loan. I know such a thing as exists, but most people, they have no idea. But HELOC loan has no idea if there's a HELOC or a HE loan, right? Payoff debt, that one might be smart. Increase our home's value with upgrades, right? So unless you absolutely need those upgrades, home renovations, unless you're going to sell it in the market and the margin of making those upgrades are apparent, you don't need to do home renovations if your kitchen is working fine. Like, what do you need to do home renovations for? Because the bank wants you to make big purchases, okay? So and not pay it off quickly. Payment went from 300 to 700, so let's write that down. This mistake is not doing velocity banking, because if we do velocity banking, the payment doesn't matter, right? Okay, that's another mistake. And I should put HELOC Reddit mistakes. Okay, so that's how we solve that one. So going through anything similar, and then having savings, that's a mistake too. Having savings, right? Banks want you to have savings because if you have, let's say, a 1% or 0.001% interest rate and you have a 9% HELOC, it just feels good to have the savings when you should, instead of putting all your cash into the debt, the full power of your paycheck into the debt. Okay. So that's another one. Is there any way to refi? So I'm pretty sure this one person wants to do a refi to get out of this. And again, considering refi to pay off HELOC. And folks, what is the solution to all of these? Doing velocity banking, right? That's pretty much the solution. And I'm going to just do a quick demo with our spreadsheet of what I think this would look like. Now, this is a much more simplified version of what I normally do. I didn't put any credit card debt. I just put two things, the HELOC and the mortgage. I just assumed the mortgage originally was 200,000, even though right now it says like, oh, it's 190 something, 193. Okay, we'll just assume it started at 200,000. Okay, and right now we're at 193K. Okay, now with the HELOC, okay, this is the most important thing. We're going to make this as our main operating account. That's the difference between the average American and velocity banking. So before we actually start this, let's go over the very basic of velocity banking is. All velocity banking is using a line of credit as your main tool to pay off debt, right? And you might be saying, "Oh my goodness, this person has a line of credit." Yes, but he or she is not using the line of credit as the main operating account. Because if we use it as the main operating account, this payment don't matter. Okay, so in order to do velocity banking, we need two things: the budget, which is our debt attack plan, because if you don't have any debt, you don't need the strategy, right? But that's what the budget is for. You have to list every single debt. And then number two, you got to make a line of credit as a main operating account. So I'm going to show you how that's different from this side to this side. Almost the exact same thing, okay? So let me just kind of go here, and we're going to assume the same income, but here's what we're going to do, right? You see where it says like this guy's or gal or whoever is freaking out, this person has savings, okay? And we're gonna do the opposite of what most Americans are trained to do, which is have savings accounts, okay? So what are we gonna do? We're gonna put a big fat zero here. Oh my goodness, zero savings, right? And then we're gonna do another thing, okay? So what we're gonna do is use what we call our cash flow to pay off our debt in the line of credit. So what we're going to do is now we're going to take this and we're just going to assume a 9% interest rate, right? At an $87,000 balance, month zero. And the actual velocity banking strategy is you put your entire paycheck into the line of credit and then expenses out and your balance will go down by the cash flow. Now, when we use something as our main operating account, or when we use a line of credit as our main operating account, guess what happens to payment? Oh my goodness, this payment doesn't even matter, right? Because when you put your entire paycheck, that does two things. That satisfies the minimum monthly payment, number one, minimum monthly payment. Number two, it decreases the interest because the interest is calculated by the average daily balance, right? And so now we created $700 of cash flow out of thin air. Oh my goodness, that was so easy, right? And now all you got to do is just keep doing rinse and repeat over and over again. You don't even have to think about it. In fact, I know a couple who had 200 something thousand dollars of loans. They were trained to do this velocity banking strategy, and they got rid of it in 2 years. And they had no idea how it works. It's like, oh, I'm just going to put my entire paycheck into a line of credit. Now, I don't recommend that you do that unless you actually do a little bit of strategic planning. The word strategy is what our former president, George W. Bush, used to use. And so I recommend that you do that. All right, so now what we're going to do is put calculate the next month's balance, which is the previous month's balance plus the previous month's interest minus our cash flow, and our cash flow is 2129.59, okay? And then what we're going to do is get the interest, which is calculated by the average daily balance, multiply by the interest rate, which is 0.09 in this case, 9%, that's what it said in the Reddit post, and then divide by 12, okay? So banks love it when you make big purchases and have savings. Oh, I erased all my notes. Let me go back here. Big purchases to increase a home's value with upgrades, and then you make the minimum payments. And how do I know this person's making minimum payments? Because we're not putting our entire paycheck into that line of credit. That's why we're freaking out. And not only that, we have some savings. We got savings here, right? And we know that this is a no savings cult until we have all of our debts paid off. Now, so let's go ahead and copy these formulas and see how long it takes. Okay, so let's go here. Okay, so now this took about 49 months to pay off that $87,000 in the home equity line of credit. So 49 divided by 12, that's about 4 years. Again, so I don't know this person's income or whatever, but let's just do this. 4 years. Actually, let me do 49 months to pay off 87K. Now, again, this could have all been prevented. The only reason I've ever do a home renovation is if I'm gonna sell on the market and substantially gonna increase the value, or I just don't have something that's not working. Like if my kitchen isn't working, then yeah, I guess I'll renovate it, or my toilet or whatever. But $87,000, I don't know if you knew this or not. That's actually like a full gut rehab on a house, right? Like 10 to 20 is kind of like light. 30 to 50 is kind of like, oh, you're putting a little bit of work in, but $87,000 on rehab. It's you're decking out your house, you know what I'm saying? All right, but let's just go here. So 49 months, 87,000. Now, we're going to figure out how many months have passed. And again, I don't know the original balance, but let's just assume that actually, let me do this. Let me go here. So give me 1 second. Okay, so what we're going to do is check um, how long it goes to 193. So about a year and a half, right? And then what we got to do is once we're at a year and a half, add 49 months. So what's 18 plus 49? Let's just do a quick calculation. 18 plus 49. So 67 months, and then we're just going to go down here to the 67, right? 67, and now we're at 175, okay? 175. So that's where we're currently at right now. All right. So now we have $175,000, and what we can do now is just focus on paying off that mortgage. Now, the whole idea of this is that you're going to transfer some of the principal to the line of credit and then put your entire paycheck into the line of credit. Now, some people have been asking, well, what's the difference between that and directly overpaying the loan with your savings directly, right? Like, just make extra payments, and both of them will work. Both of them will work. But here's the thing: the system knows that you're not going to ever overpay the loan. Like, they know that you're not going to do it, because if they knew that you would do it, nobody would ever refinance, right? And why do we refinance? Because we have cash flow problems, right? And we need to have our savings, and we get scared, and then we blow our savings on something like retirement accounts or something like that. Well, that's not really necessarily a bad idea, or you could blow it on Vegas. But what I'm just saying is that the loan, because it's a one-way street, incentivizes us just to not make the extra payment so that we have something in savings, right? But you could do either way. You put your entire savings into that mortgage, or you just transfer it to the line of credit, and then you put your entire paycheck into the line of credit, expenses out, rinse and repeat over and over again, right? So it's like, how long will it take for me to go to 175 to 170? Okay, so we'll just kind of take a look here. So 175, how long does it take to get to 170? Almost about a year. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Ooh, a little bit more than a year. So if we transfer 5K, how long does it take to kind of pay that off? So we'll just do this plus 5000, 1, 2, essentially like 2 months, 3 months, right? And then you kind of rinse and repeat over and over again. Now, if you do it this way, you're actually going to get an inaccurate payoff, because it's not taking into account the monthly payment that's actually getting made, thus depleting the balance faster. Now, luckily, we have a velocity banking calculator that where we can just input the numbers, like 200,000 original balance. Right now it's 174, and then interest rate is, what does the Reddit post say? 3.25. And then term is, we'll say 30 years, and the payment amount, I could just copy it from here, is 870.41. So 870.41. And you might be wondering, where did I get this calculator? Well, I got it from Renatus, and this is where I first learned velocity banking in 2017. And they provide this free quote calculator. And if you're a Renatus student, you'll get it. And full disclosure, I enroll people because I'm an independent contracted marketer. And when I say enroll, I just sell them education online based on whatever they want, right? So, but that's where I got the calculator. You only get the calculator if you're a Renatus student. All right, so now let's just assume that we're moving our line of credit into our mortgage into a line of credit, and then put our income in there. So the income is 5,000, and the expenses, everything except for the loan we're trying to pay off, which is 2,000. 2,000, right? So let's go ahead and do that. 2,000. All right. So how long for a payoff? 5.4 years, right? 5.4. So luckily, because the interest rates are low, yeah, we would have paid 79 grand on the interest, but we only paid 17. So lots of interest savings there. Although, I always like running simulations or calculations where it gets paid off in like 4 years. Maybe I'm just too spoiled, but I think 5 is taking a little bit too long, right? But yeah. So again, same thing. And if you ever want to take a look at this, again, this is like the line of credit. Again, this is not exact either, but it's almost close to exact, right? So, and someone asked me like, what is the optimal amount? To be honest, I have no idea. I don't think it even matters. Like, as long as you're not putting the whole thing, and I'm going to show you what I mean by that. So if I put 175, 884.75 into a line of credit that big, take a look at this. So it, in my experience, this always like doubles, and then this always gets a little bit delayed too. Take a look at that. 67,000. Actually, I got to change this 9%. 57,000, right? 57,000, 6.5 compared to if we do a $5,000 chunk, 16. Isn't that crazy? A lot of people like think, oh my goodness, you put the whole entire mortgage in line credit. You don't. You either do extra payments or you do chunking, and they're pretty much the same, except the only difference between chunking is that you're actually going to do it. Meaning, like with extra payments, it's all fine and dandy, but nobody does that because if they did, which is the default, nobody would like people would have their loans literally paid off in like 5 to 7 years, right? But they don't. All right. Well, so let's just go here. So it's 49 divided by 12 plus 5.4. All right. Paid off everything in 10 years. So 9.5 years debt free. And assuming we got this, $287,000 of debt, right? Assuming that we only have two, HELOC and a mortgage, and I just assume the income as well. But folks, this is just my opinion, and I'm not giving you advice. I would never use a HELOC for like a personal home improvement. Like never, unless I was actually for sure gonna resell the home pretty quickly. You know what I mean? Like, what do you, $87,000? That's a full gut rehab job, right? Like a full gut rehab job. What are you spending $87,000? And again, I know that in the post it's just something about like, consolidating debt and all that. But folks, we have so many things that are done wrong. HELOC loan, home renovations, worrying about the $300 to $700 payment, having some savings, considering refi to pay. You ever like deal with like refi costs? I remember when I refied, I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like I could get a home equity line of credit and it has zero closing costs, but for a refi, I gotta pay, probably around 10 grand or something like that, right? Around that figure. All right, well, this is Korean Atlanta Mentorship, another real life velocity banking review. Again, I could find a million of these on the internet, right? Like people do what the banks want them to do. It's like, oh my goodness, why am I drowning? That's literally what happens. Okay, well, have a great day, everybody, and we will speak next time.